Good morning, Athens. Great to be here. Let me see if I can get my presentation up. Oh, fantastic. Good. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you about some of the social implications of blockchain. There's some pretty significant ones. We're going to talk about, is big tech, is that big brother? Human trafficking, financial inclusion. Is this an area where blockchain can help us? We hear about things like Facebook's Libra, UN Sustainable Development Goals. Can blockchain play a role there? And finally, man-made technology, humans, is blockchain going to be any different? A little bit about me, and you can look me up in the program or the app. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a former regulator. I was involved in launching Lab CFTC, which is the US regulator's innovation platform. Spent my career in financial services, won some money on a game show, and went backpacking, so got to spend some time exploring Greece. And happy to get to know more of you during this conference. So what's the problem? Before we get to the solution, what is the problem? I really feel we live in a society where as much prosperity as many people have, trust is broken. And that even though technology was a tool that promoted knowledge, convenience, efficiency, in some ways brought it together, it's tearing us apart. And it's something that can be used by autocratic governments to give us social scores, to monitor our every move, collecting all this data. Is there a fear that we are moving to a dystopian society? Are we already living in this dystopian society where the people are numbed instead of by something else, by their phones and Netflix? One of the things I think is ironic is in 2008, when the original Bitcoin white paper was written, the concern was mistrust of big banks, big governments, central banks. But now I'd say that the mistrust of big tech is just as big as any one of those. Now blockchain. Does blockchain provide an opportunity to fix what is broken, perhaps to move us in the direction of a new society? What are some of the tools that blockchain can give us? What does it enable that may actually help us to live in a better world going forward? And I do believe that there are things that blockchain, it hasn't already necessarily done, but are in the pipeline that are being tested that show great promise for things that will be better for us in the future. Things like enabling self-sovereign identity, an ability through new business models as well as technological tools that will let us control our own data. Who sees it, how it's used, data portability. Things like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. This wasn't a bug, it was a feature. This was built into the design where the data could be harvested and used. Will there be new business models powered by blockchain technology that reverse that so that we can take back control, we can take back greater freedom? Is that freedom itself a social good? Well, I think here we are in Athens at a conference called Decentralized, the birthplace of democracy or Athenian democracy. We're in the right place to be thinking and talking about those things at this conference. And it's great. I spent a lot of my time and career in financial services, but I think it's important for us to think about how are we living as people and what is technology meaning for us. So how can blockchain help society? How can it transform today's business models? Identity management, powering new reward and incentive systems, unique attributes for transparency and collaboration, and maybe, now we're hearing a lot about digital currencies and stablecoins, maybe that will also be how blockchain helps affect the future through things like greater financial inclusion. When you show your driver's license to get into a bar, when you show your ID card to get through an airport, you're sharing a lot of information they don't necessarily need. Why do they need to know what year you were born if you were old enough? Why do they need to know your home address, your marital status? So can we manage the information that we're sharing in some of these? And there are new business models like Brave Browser, Basic Attention Token, where you get rewarded for providing your attention to share with a particular browsing platform. So there are people who are innovating. Filecoin, IPFS, will you be able to provide some of your excess storage to commercialize that and to distribute it in a way? So again, it's creating a new business model, decentralized business models, reverse business models powered by blockchain. Now, there are other specific areas of application, And I'm just going to run through a few of these very quickly to leave time for questions at the end. But in terms of supply chain and human trafficking, there are tens of millions of people around the world trapped in various forms of slavery. In fact, it's estimated that there are more slaves today around the world than there were in 1860, even though the US abolished slavery after the Civil War. Sex slavery, forced marriage slavery, child slavery, some of it working in different conditions. There are certain industries where they're prone to use it. So using blockchain, you can have traceability of particular fish to particular boats to particular fleets to see, is this an area where fish tend to be produced with slave workers, or are they produced with free workers? And this kind of traceability can be applied not just to fish via the Mekong project, but to diamonds, to other industries and products as well. Blockchain is already helping in financial inclusion, and can it do more? Aadhaar, in India, people got digital identities. That's not a specific blockchain thing, but now with these digital identities, you can designate digital rewards directly to these people, so you eliminate lots of layers of corruption where people, middlemen in the sort of the aid distribution and government benefits distribution took their little cut. You can eliminate that, and potentially now with the ability to make digital distributions, there's greater ability of blockchain in combination with other tools and advances to increase people's inclusion and freedom. Now, Facebook's Libra. Here's Mark Zuckerberg getting grilled in front of Congress last week. This has generated an enormous amount of attention. Now, I'm sure everybody here, is there anybody here who has not heard of Libra? Yeah. So they did a pretty good job of communicating it to everybody in the world. So, what is Libra supposed to do? It's going to be this stable coin. It's going to also provide a wallet. They're going to have this sort of Libra association that's going to govern it. And it's supposed to be kind of a currency that you can use in the social media world, that it's backed by something. It's going to be backed by a basket of currencies. It's going to be backed by cash, a little bit TBD. When they rolled this out, I think that their goals were commercial, but they put it in the guise of, all the wonderful things it can do. People will trust increasingly decentralized forms of government, greater opportunity. So it was certainly cloaked in financial inclusion, and can this currency bring more people into the financial system? I think there actually is an agreement that there are the unbanked, those who are not part of financial inclusion, and so blockchain, both in terms of what it can do for identity and what it can do in terms of the actual currencies itself, can play a role in helping here. Now, is Facebook the right actor to do it? The reaction to this has been pretty skeptical. The French in particular, and some of the G7 are taking a good hard look at this. It's a really interesting conversation. I was in IMF for the World Bank meetings a couple weeks ago. You had the guy, David Marcus from Facebook. You had Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England. You actually have, when the guy from Facebook is up there, he says, follow us on Facebook. So they're always on message. And they're making points. Like they said, well, a few people dropped out, but 2,700 firms want to join us. So I think we'll continue to watch that space. That's going to be, whether that's really helpful and how that evolves, I think will continue to be a very visible thing for the next year. A number of case studies that my Yale students performed looked at some of these specific things. There's something called AidCoin. This lets you, when you donate to charity, if you give it in dollars or euros, it's hard to kind of trace. Some people have developed a specific type of coin, so you can actually follow that coin on a ledger as it is given to new projects. Property registry, Bitland, a way to kind of improve access to land records. Again, a tool to help fight against corruption, people getting their land taken. There's vulnerability there because there's still, what's the quality of the record as it goes in, but people are trying to work on that issue. ID 2020, very important global initiative trying to give identities to refugees, and they're giving themselves a lot of key performance indicators and metrics, and have made a lot of progress. And I think I saw somebody from that organization was going to be here later in the conference. ScanTrust, traceability of coffee. Food supply chain transparency. Foodshed, tracking food within a 250-mile radius. And blockchain can be used to track the implementation of all the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Because there's 17 goals and 169 targets, that's a lot of things to track. How can we kind of share the information and use the kind of convenience of blockchain? So to wrap up, I know I've gone through some of these very quickly. Technology is only human. It's a tool we use. On one side, we have fire, which was, according to Greek myth, given to us by Prometheus, so I thought that's the right one to talk about here. On the other side, we have Frankenstein, and remember, Frankenstein was the doctor. He wasn't the monster. Technology is something we created, and the question is, can it be different this time with blockchain? Can we create a better society? I'm very optimistic. Blockchain is still young, just turned 10. It could use a UNIC education, but I'm hopeful it will create a better society for all of us. And to thank you very much and take a couple of questions.